Step on up, sit down, twist off that bottle top or crack open that can, and welcome to Porch Matters. This is Terry Cagle coming to you from my back porch. Yes sir, yes ma'am, the name of this show is authentic. On Porch Matters, our saying is this: big issues or just a friendly conversation. No topic is off limits. We take pride in being able to talk about anything with each other in an open discussion. Open discussion is one of the only ways to learn. Your perspective could be changed. You could change the perspective of others. Friends and family, welcome back to another episode of Porch Matters. I'm glad you're here. Before we go any further, I want to give all you ladies that are listening to the sound of my voice the recognition you deserve. To all of you that are mothers, some of you ladies have been blessed to have children and raise them. Some may have become a mother by adopting children or marrying someone who already had children. There might be some of you that have lost children and are not able to get a hug from them today. Ladies, happy Mother's Day to all of you that can hear me. I hope all of you had a great day today. James Brown was absolutely correct when he sung the words, "It's a man's world, but it would be nothing without a woman or a girl." I know I am a lot biased, and I make no apologies for that, but I think I have the best mother ever, and I want to give a special shout out to her because I know she's listening. I was going to get her on the show for a few minutes to introduce y'all to her, but she is feeling a little bit under the weather this week. She is my biggest supporter and my best friend. I know raising me wasn't the easiest thing to do. She, along with my dad, sacrificed a lot for me. God knows I got a lot of whoopings growing up. I may not have gotten everything that I wanted growing up, but I always had everything I needed. I've told her just like I told my dad, if I'm ever blessed with a child of my own, I'm going to do my best to raise he or she just as I was raised, and I think that's the best compliment that I could give. Denzel Washington said it best when he said, "A mother is a son's first true love. A son, especially that first son, is a mother's last true love." I'm a proud mama's boy. I love you, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. For the food review this week, I rode up to Hartselle, Alabama, and met a friend of mine named Shane Aletto at Pizza Ed, right in the middle of downtown off of Highway 36. I know on a lot of reviews you have heard me say that I had a ribeye steak. Now, I love steak, but I also love me some pizza. I have had a big love for Chicago-style pizza for a few years now. Closest place I knew I could get good Chicago-style pizza for the longest was a place in Nashville. Then, I heard about another place in Birmingham. I was flipping through social media and stumbled upon Pizza Ed, and I saw they had Chicago-style pizza. So, I had to try it, and it did not disappoint, y'all. Staff was very nice. Parking was a pain in the butt because it was right in the middle of town, but the food was awesome. I ordered a Chicago-style pizza with pepperoni, beef, and sausage. I also had an order of cheese sticks there that were great. No, I did not get it all ate. I brought some of it home. I know what some of you were thinking. I plan on going back real soon. I encourage you to do the same. If you happen to be in driving distance of Hartselle, swing by and give Pizza Ed a shot. Pizza Ed is definitely #fatboy approved. Would you rather question last episode was, would you rather eat fast food burgers every night or eat Chinese takeout every night? On the Facebook page, Robert Dominguez from Bigfoot Club says, "I would go with Chinese, only because of the different combinations." Karen Lauderdale says Chinese takeout. In the Facebook group, Jessica Nelson says, "I would probably say Chinese because I love sesame chicken and wontons." Neil Hiller says, "Of the choices, Chinese, but if I had the choice, Mexican would be every meal." Marinelle Saunders commented on Neil's, said, "I agree with of those options. I choose Chinese, but Mexican is the way to go." Victoria Joyce says, I eat Asian food 365. Elizabeth Stanley says, Chinese most definitely. Mark Watkins says, I love burgers but would probably get tired of them. At least with Chinese, there's a greater variety. On Instagram, Lindsay Rowland Carry On Podcast says Chinese. Hiller Custom Woodlines says throw Mexican in there and you have my answer. On Twitter, Alabama Cannabis Coalition says Chinese definitely. Many more options on their menu. Z1 Pod says burgers because there's way too much salt in Chinese food and I'd end up looking like this. And he posted a gif of a dried up dying creature. In the Shed with Wes Anderson said Chinese food for me. Big thanks to all of you who commented. I really appreciate it. The new question this episode is based off the conversation you are about to hear. Would you rather be Batman or be Superman? This was easy for me. I would rather be faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Superman. I can relate to Superman as far as him always having trouble fitting in or relating to people. He always just wants to blend in with the crowd and not stand out even though he was sent to this earth to stand out. I paraphrased this in the conversation you were about to hear, but this is the actual quote. Batman said this about Superman. It is a remarkable dichotomy. In many ways, Clark is the most human of us all. Then, he shoots fire from his eyes, and it is difficult not to think of him as a god, and how fortunate we all are that it does not occur to him. What say you? Please go to the Facebook page, Facebook group, Instagram, or Twitter and comment your answer. I can't wait to read them. Next episode, I will read your comment on the show. On this episode, John Ware comes on the porch. He is the creator of the movie 3 Days Dead and the show Town of the Living Dead. He shares his story of growing up in Walker County, how 3 Days Dead and Town of the Living Dead came to be. We also talk about the new project he is working on, and we share our thoughts on the new Batman movie. John, I really appreciate you coming onto the porch, and just like I say in the conversation, you've got an open invitation anytime you want to come on, sir. Without further ado, let's get started. John Ware, welcome to the porch, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Any better? I don't guess I could stand it. It's been a beautiful day today, that's for sure.
Yeah. I've been cooped up in the office all day. I started working from home, so I've been in the office all day today.
Understand. I'd have to at least open up a window or something. I got to get some
windows open. I got the window open.
I got to get some vitamin D.
Yeah. I got the window open. My cats tend to spend the day with me when I'm up here. So
how's that work out for you?
Pretty good. They just get in the window and they occasionally have a scrap, but they figure it out, and neither one of them runs off, or they figure it out and make up.
If you hear anything going on in the background, my neighbor's building a porch and a ramp about 50 yards from me. So that's part of the downside, I guess, of recording on the back porch, but it is what it is.
If it works, it works, man. If it works, it works.
So you still living in Jasper?
Yeah, we just bought a house here about 3 years ago. So me and my wife, we got our own little homestead set up, I guess.
I have to be completely honest. I know of you, and I've seen you a time or two out and about out around town, I guess, or at Radio Shack or something. But me and you've never really had a conversation, so I don't really know that much about you.
Huh, I don't think we have either. So, I think it's the same type of situation. I've seen you around. I think we've met a time or two, but one of us was always busy and had to run off, I believe.
Right. I mean, I'm sure I've seen you at the Radio Shack or restaurant or something. So
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. How'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Dora. My grandparents raised me. That's a That's a different ball of wax for a different show, I believe. But I grew up in Dora. My grandparents took care of me, and went to T.S. Boyd, and then I went to Summerton Christian. Graduated from Summerton Christian in '98. Left there and went to the 13th grade of Bevel State for about
Right.
4 years.
Right.
Um, and then I left Bevel and finished at UAB in 2000. Hang on, I forget. 2006. Had to look at my diploma on the wall.
I grew up in Dilworth, right across the highway, a little ways. I
Yeah.
went to Summerton Elementary and then started at Dora, but then I transferred to Summerton Christian. I graduated in 2000.
Okay. So we just missed each
Just
other.
missed one another. I know what you're talking about the 13th grade. Folks, if you're
Yeah.
listening to us and don't know what we're talking about, Summerton Christian School is right next to Summerton Church of God. It's actually on the same property, at least it used to be anyway. By the 13th grade, I mean, we literally went across the street to Bevel State Community College. That's exactly what it felt like. It felt exactly like the 13th grade. No disrespect to Bevel State whatsoever, but whenever everybody that you went to school with just goes right across the street, it kind of feels that way.
We just switched buildings. That's all.
That's it. So what got you into filmmaking?
I mean, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and I had an advisor, and they're like, "Hey, man, you're always talking about," because I'd switched majors 3 or 4 times already. That's why it took me 4 years at a community college. So I just had an advisor, and we started talking, and they're like, "What do you want to do? Like, you're always talking about movies and stuff, and you're always like writing creative stories and working on creative writing projects and whatnot. Why don't you try film?" And I thought, well, we're in Alabama and there's not really anything around close enough that would be considered film school. But then she said, what about broadcasting? And so UAB has an excellent broadcasting program. All of the professors knew why all the students were there. They're like,
Right.
we're here to make films because Sidewalk Film Festival at the time was just starting to ramp up, and be a thing. And all the professors there knew we were there for filmmaking. So they taught it pretty much as a filmmaking course.
How long did that last?
I was there 3 years. So I had an extra hours or extra year of credits at Bevel that transferred over. So it only took me 3 years to get a 4-year degree at UAB, but it actually took me 7 years to get a 4-year degree with all the changes.
With that communications degree, did you go into any kind of radio or anything like that?
Man, I focused so heavily on the filmmaking aspect of it that I did not. I like the idea of radio. I've done some radio programming here and there, but nothing professionally. Well, I say nothing professionally. I've been on some, real radio stations, but I wasn't there as a professional. You know what I mean? I was a guest, or my buddy's like, "Hey, come in and help me with this for a little while." So I did, that kind of thing. So
I started to work at the Walker County Jail around 2008, and I remember around 2013 or so, one of my coworkers was an extra in one of your films.
yeah, 3 Days Dead was the zombie film that put me on the map, I guess, or took me off the map, however you want to look at it, because we worked on that thing forever. And, that led into the sci-fi show that we did about the film. I love it and I hate it both at the same time. It's one of those things.
Why is that? Why do you love it and hate it?
Well, I put so much of myself into it for me to not get the reward that I expected, I guess. Being on a major television network, I thought, hey, man, this is a break for me, and everybody else involved. And it just didn't turn out that way. We had a bad time slot. People didn't watch because they were watching other things. Maybe I wasn't good enough, entertaining enough. I don't know. It's probably a whole cornucopia of things that led to the downfall.
Kind of get in your head and start wondering what if on everything.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a what if situation the whole time. I'm still working on other things, and I have been the whole time. It just kind of that little devil on your shoulder. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
That just kind of questions you the whole way.
What were some of the, if you can, the downfalls other than the time slots and everything? I think we're combining both. Let's start with the movie first. How was the movie versus the reality TV show or the TV show that you done?
What do you mean? The reality show was like a making of type deal.
Okay.
With the movie, man, we had it's just money issues. We had a very small budget, and at first we couldn't afford to pay anybody, and then we lost a few actors because we couldn't pay anybody. Unfortunately, they were main characters and had to be replaced. So just different issues, man. We went through three different casts, main casts. The zombies pretty much stayed the same the whole way through, but as far as main characters go, we changed actors three times on two of the three of the main characters actually.
It's not the 4th of July. Apparently, somebody's firing shots around here. Like, I don't know what they're doing. It's Dilworth, brother. You don't ever know what you're gonna get around here.
No, I've been there. My one of my best friends in high school lived in Coon Creek, so
Oh Lord, have mercy. It's a whole
yeah.
it's a whole nother animal now than what it used to be. All of us grew up, I guess, but I always heard stories. You didn't go to Coon Creek around Halloween.
Oh yeah, I've heard. We would go out exploring the ins and outs of the neighborhood, late at night.
Oh yeah.
And we had talked about. I talked about Empire on another podcast I did a few weeks ago, and my buddy that I'm talking about now, he shot me a text message. He's like, "Sir, you're going to have to correct that. I don't live in Empire. I lived in Coon Creek." So,
Well, there's people that'll absolutely get upset if you mistake Coon Creek for Empire.
yeah,
For sure. That's like me. I live in Dilworth, but I have an Empire mailing address.
yeah.
Everybody just thought, "Oh, how's things over there in Empire?" No, I'm in Dilworth.
He's like, I appreciate the shout out to Joe Weldon Road, but that's not Empire. That's Coon
That
Creek.
is straight up Coon Creek, brother.
So I spent lots of days over there.
As far as your experience goes, I've had a fellow by the name of Steve Moon on here before. He wrote and directed a couple of movies, and he talked a little bit about the ins and outs of what he goes through. What's your mind frame? Are you strictly about horror, or are you branching out into other subjects and other topics or anything like that?
When I started filmmaking, I wanted to do just horror, but the new project I'm working on, I've actually been working on it for a while. I've been trying to tweak the script to get it just right. It's a crime drama. It's a southern crime drama
Okay.
about crime and corruption in a small southern town.
We wouldn't know anything about that, would we?
Not a thing, man. Not a thing.
Whenever you sit down to write, because I'm sure you pretty much create everything from start to finish, unless you have some help. Whenever you start writing, do you just get in the zone and just stay with it? Do you set time out to write just this, that, and the other? How do you do it?
Any screenwriters I know that are going to be listening to this, they're going to yell at me because I don't normally sit. I set aside time every day, but I don't go into it like, okay, I've got to write for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour. I will write until there's nothing left, or I will write until I just get tired of it. It's definitely a process, and sometimes I'll have to leave something for a while and come back to it weeks later and be like, oh, this doesn't make any sense. Let me talk to these characters and see what's going on. It's literally I'll take out a pad and a piece of paper, along with my computer, and I'll just sit down and I'll start writing questions that I need answered. Because each scene is going to need a beginning, a middle, and an end, just like the entire movie. It's a series of beginning, middle, and end.
3
So I'll
acts.
sit down, yeah, and within each act, there's also a series of I need to get from point A to point B, but how do I do that? What happens in the middle between him leaving his front door and him showing up at the police station? Does anything happen? Do I need to show it? Do I need to talk about it? And most of the time, sometimes it's like, no, he just needs to walk out of his front door and basically walk in the door at the police station. You know what I mean? And that's an example from my current project. But yeah, I don't sit down and go, okay, I'm going to write for an hour, because there's distractions. There's always distractions, whether it be something outside the house or the phone ringing or a text coming in or whatever. And I know I should do better time management, but it works for me at the end of the day, and everybody has their own process. So everybody's different.
Well, you've got to find your inspiration and everything. And I mean, I know with me, I dabbled a little bit with creative writing a little bit, in my younger days. I couldn't just sit there and just come up with something just right off the bat. I had to be inspired about it. I'd go throughout my day or whatever, and then if something popped in my head, I'd write it down, but then I'd try to revisit it later and then expand upon it. Kind of like
Yeah.
what you was talking about a minute ago. Once I got it rolling, I'd keep going until there wasn't nothing else there.
You never know when that inspiration is going to hit, though. So it's a good thing. I always usually keep a notepad or something close, but I've got a digital computer or a computer in my phone in my pocket at all times, so I can just take notes on there. But the bad thing about that is if I put a note in my phone and I'm not like actively remembering it, I'll forget that it's there.
Yes.
So I literally have Post-it notes everywhere, so that I know, okay, I've got this, my keyboard on my computer is covered in them. I have to move them around sometimes to actually like type. But that's the thing, man. If I can't see it, I don't remember it. It doesn't exist anymore.
I'm the same way at work. I've got Post-its everywhere about this, that, and the other.
People talk about their organized mess. I understand it, and I have since high school.
I call mine sometimes organized chaos.
Yeah. And I've used that phrase before to describe my process. It's like it's chaos, but at the end, like the universe, chaos came together.
How were you able to get onto sci-fi?
They called me. Actually, Sci-Fi didn't call me. A company that makes reality TV contacted me and said, "Hey, we've heard about your film. We've heard about your struggles. We think it would make an excellent reality TV show, a making of." And that process went, they would come down and they filmed what they called the sizzle reel, which is basically just like a trailer for the show that they wanted to do. And then they pitched it to a bunch of different networks, and Sci-Fi was the network that bit, that was going to pay us the most.
Have you still got a decent relationship with Sci-Fi to be able to pitch something else in the future?
Man, I do not. Like, I haven't been in contact with any of those people in forever. And whenever I had tried, it's like they gave me the cold shoulder and kind of brushed me off. I'm just like, come on, man. You come down here and you made me look bad for one, and then you're just going to give me the brush off and act like I don't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
Now I have people that argue with me and say that they didn't make us look bad, that they loved the show, but I believe that personally, I feel like they kind of made us look bad.
I can understand where you would come from on that, but I think that you made the area and the county and everything proud, showing somebody from here could actually get to the level that you got.
I appreciate that. I really do. Makes me feel good in my heart.
I hope so, because I'm being
Yeah.
honest. I I looked at it like, hey, Walker County boy did good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, we've had so much other negative stuff, around here that I thought, well, what the heck? Let me try and do something positive. They could have painted it in a better light, but they all claimed that they knew what made good television. Obviously, they were wrong in this instance because it was the time slot. I talk about the time slot a lot, but what people don't understand is sometimes networks will put shows that they don't want to succeed in a bad time slot, right? So we were up against Sons of Anarchy in their final season. Same time, same night, same everything.
My God.
And then not only
You didn't go up against Sons of Anarchy in their final season. I mean, that was top notch. I mean,
yeah,
that was just like Yellowstone is right now, or like Walking Dead was for a while before they
well,
started
see,
slipping.
I didn't but that wasn't all, right? So
Right.
we had an hour, which was 2 episodes that they aired back to back. So they were like 30-minute episodes, 2 episodes back to back, and then right after that we had an hour of rerun, right? So we had our initial run from like 8 to 9, which was Sons of Anarchy, and then from 9 to 10 when they reran the show, Supernatural was on. So from 8 to 9 I'm fighting Jax, and from 9 to 10 I'm fighting the Winchesters, and then in the fourth week was the World Series, so I was fighting the Boston Red Sox at that point.
Right. Whenever you're behind the camera or in front of the camera, are you happy to be there? Are you feeling like that's what you were called to do or what you were put on this earth to do?
It is a very zen moment at first. And then I remember that nobody wants to listen. And that these are grown people that I'm having to tell exactly what to do because I've created this world that they're now living in. You know what I mean? Okay, it's a very zen moment. And then it can be overwhelming too, at the same time. It's my place. And then it's also something that I want to burn down at the same time. And a lot of filmmakers have that same idea. It's like you're here, you've created this world, you've brought all these people together. Now you got to tell them what to do and get them to perform. And they're not children, so they're not going to listen to every single word you say with bated breath. It's like, these are grown people, and they say never work with kids or animals, but I think I could work with kids sometimes better than I could grown men.
That's understandable. I'm sure the people that you're working with are looking at it like, I've been doing this for so long, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. I've read this script enough to where I know what my character would do. And you've heard stories like that all the time. How big of a struggle is it sometimes to get an actor or an actress to do exactly what you're wanting to do?
It can be a struggle, and it can be the most glorious experience ever, and sometimes you're feeling your way through it. You're like, okay, do this, and then they do it and you're like, no, 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 that's wrong, try it this way, and then that's not quite right, but then they can combine the two, and then you get magic, and it happens a lot, and then sometimes it doesn't happen at all.
I guess that's like with any other collaboration, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, music wise, anybody that's done any kind of artistic endeavor, they understand it's trial and error, right? It's art and it's subjective, but when you're the one that you're trying to tell them, okay, this is the way I need it. I don't need you to act like a spoiled 13-year-old. I need you to act like you just walked into Wall Street, and are about to make $7.5 million off of one deal. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's a difference there. Some people want to play whiny characters, and some people want to play like real assertive. But you that goes back to the actor. It's him or herself, I guess. You have to know what person will fit each part, and what person will. Just because they look like the person you had in mind when you wrote it doesn't mean they can act their way out of a wet paper sack. And I'm not saying I had that problem with anybody. I'm just in general, you know what I mean?
I know exactly
Sometimes
what
you
you mean.
find somebody, and you're like, that person would look amazing in this part, but can they act? And that's the most important part of it is, can they act? I just looked out the window and realized it's dark outside.
Yeah, it's getting dark quick. On your new project that you was talking about, Small Town, have you got any of the details down to where you could share a little bit with us, or are you just going to leave it at what you got?
Well, it came to me again. It was one of those moments of inspiration. People may not that aren't from here don't know what the Mountain Eagle is. The Mountain Eagle is the local newspaper, and you would see these stories. This guy overdosed over the weekend, or the county sheriff is investigating an overdose or a meth lab or whatever, right? But
Right.
it really hit home. There was a weekend, and I just threw away. Actually, I didn't throw it away. I probably got in a drawer somewhere. But there was a weekend where 22 people overdosed in the same weekend, and I knew some of these people, and I was like, I didn't know that they had a drug problem.
Right.
And the thing is, with whatever that was that weekend, they didn't have to have a drug problem. They could have just picked the wrong weekend to try whatever. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
But the irony is that 2 weeks previous to that, I nearly lost a family member for the same thing, to the same stuff. Somebody found them, and like if they had been another 5 minutes, they wouldn't have made it. And so that all kind of hit me really hard, and I thought, and it wasn't the fentanyl thing wasn't as widespread at the time as it is now. It was just like the very beginning, right? And I thought to myself, somebody has to do something. Somebody has to bring some sort of awareness to this. Just because people think that we're a bunch of hillbillies around here and all we do is like drugs and have kids, you know what I mean?
Right.
But people don't understand the impact of all that, and what we have to deal with when we live in the town and we know the people. And again, it wasn't necessarily junkies that were overdosing that weekend. There were several people that was like, I didn't even know they had a problem. And they didn't necessarily have a problem. They just got a hold of the wrong stuff on the wrong weekend. And it just kind of went from there. And I took a lot of information from a bunch of different news stories and kind of combined them together to make one week's worth of information, you know what I mean? Or a story that lasts over the course of a couple of days. So there's elements from Carrie Lawson's case, and there's elements from that drug weekend, and there's just different things that I picked and chose to put together. Things I saw on television nationally. There's a suicide in the film that I ripped directly from an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, because it was a very interesting way to commit suicide. Not that I'm not condoning suicide in any manner, but this guy, he basically used a tub of water and a lamp and a wall socket. He made a homemade electric chair basically.
Right.
I was like, I got to put that in the film.
I see exactly where you're coming from. So I enjoy horror movies, and maybe it's because of where I've worked before, or because I worked at the county jail. I've got a dark sense of humor. I guess that's what you would call it. In horror movies, I'm that guy who wants to see the most gruesome stuff that there is. Take Hostel, for example. Whenever everybody was cringing, and whenever that little chick had half of her face burned off with the Bunsen burner, I was laughing about it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I need to go see a psychiatrist. I don't know, but I find horror movies, in a lot of sense, are like a comedy to me.
Yeah.
Good,
No, I
bad,
get
or
it.
indifferent. It is what it is.
I get it. And I feel like when this one gets made, when people watch it, they'll be like, there's some horror elements in it,
Yeah.
but it is at its heart, it is still that crime drama. I jokingly say it's like Law and Order Walker County, but it's not really because we don't get to the court part of it. But and the main thing I've been tweaking over the past couple weeks has been the detective work, right? Like I didn't want them to solve the crime accidentally.
Right.
And I feel like for the longest time, when I'm just regurgitating ideas onto the page, that's where I was at. I was at the point to where it's like, well, they just stumble into this. Nobody's doing any actual work, but showing up to work, and then somebody's walking in the office with a clue. So that's
Yeah.
been my hardest part.
The sad part is, in a lot of instances and a lot of cases, they are solved on accident.
Accidentally, yeah.
I mean, it's real life, really is.
Yeah.
What, Ted Bundy got found or was actually arrested or something like that because it wasn't because everybody was able to track him down through evidence and whatnot. Didn't he get picked up on either a traffic stop or a busted tail light?
Something like that, yeah.
Something, I mean, just something random and routine like that, and it just happened to fall in he just happened to fall in their lap. So I mean,
And
stuff like that happens all the time.
what kills me is some of the cases where they actually interviewed. I think the Green River Killer. I think they had interviewed him at one point and let him go.
Yeah.
And then years later, when it came out, this is the guy. You know what I mean?
I know.
So, and they're like, we had this guy and we let him go. Now, how does that make a police officer feel? A detective,
like a pile of crap.
Hey, I got to tell you, if that had been me, I might have went home and ate the better end of a bullet for that one.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Because all the lives that he could have saved had he just pushed just a little harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's neither here nor there. They caught him. He's done. But
yeah. Did you?
Like I didn't. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. But did you ever read that article that the Washington Post put out several years ago about Walker County and the opioid abuse that we had going on at the time?
I did, and that was part of that. Again, that too was part of the story that I was working on. It was part of what drove it further.
Very accurate. Very accurate description. Yeah.
I watched. There's a show on Hulu. It's called Dope Sick, about the opioid crisis. That was OxyContin.
Yeah.
And how they targeted certain communities for that, and they lied and said, no, it's not addictive, it's fine, or you can't get to the OxyContin thing. It was like a time release deal, right? And they're like, oh, you can't get past the time release coating, and all you had to do was lick it and like wipe it on your shirt and it was gone.
Yeah.
It amazes me at the amount of faith people put in big pharma after all that.
I agree wholeheartedly. I've never been a big marijuana person. Matter of fact, I've never smoked it at all. But the research and everything that I've looked into, there's so many more benefits and everything from that plant. I don't understand why it's at least not decriminalized. I've had a lady from the Alabama Cannabis Coalition on this show 2 or 3 times. Her name's Marty Shelper. And, there's a lot between the medical benefits as well as if just decriminalizing it. Prohibition taught this country absolutely nothing. I personally feel like that if they would have at least decriminalized it, a while back, we wouldn't be in the shape that we were in, especially in this area with the opioid and the pharmaceutical abuse that we have.
Yeah, well, big pharma can't really make money off of something that people can plant in their backyard.
Exactly.
And it's all about money. And it was all about the reason, and a lot of people don't know this. The reason marijuana was criminalized was because Richard Nixon was looking at his opponents, right? And he said, who are the people that I can't overcome right now? And it was the black community and the hippie community. And he's like, I can't lock them up for being black, and I can't lock them up for being hippies. What can I lock them up for? And so he silenced his opponents by making marijuana illegal. And marijuana, it wasn't even called marijuana until then. It was still cannabis.
Yep.
They used racially charged sentiments to get this bad image in people's heads. Marijuana was the Mexican word for it.
Yep.
If you smoke this, the Mexican man will get your woman.
Yep.
They did the same thing with opium dens in San Francisco. How they shut all those down in a controlled environment where people weren't overdosing. They had problems for sure.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Then it was the yellow man will get your woman. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Everything, and they've tried to get everything racially motivated. Each side has always used race as a tool to make the other side look bad.
Oh, yeah.
And to get their way, right? I have a ton of useless knowledge, so if I get off tangent here, just overlook me or
you ain't
like,
off
hey.
tangent. You ain't off tangent. It's like I said, hey, this is just a conversation between friends. We can go anywhere you want to go.
And I've never seen two potheads want to tear each other apart. At least not in a fight. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
You put two drunks in a room, and that room may not be standing after the end of the night.
Yeah. After Colorado and Washington and everybody has passed it and everybody starts seeing the money that's being generated, it'll come around here. It'll come around here a whole lot quicker if people start pushing for it. But there again, that's another story for another time.
I think it would help people, honestly. I think, and with that decriminalization also, you're talking about overcrowding in prisons. How many people would be let loose because they had some weed on them back in the day, and there was mandatory minimums, and they went upriver and may not ever see the light of day unless that stuff gets decriminalized and they wipe out those charges.
Wasn't that something that Momo Ivy was going crazy about last year or so, about overcrowding in prisons and having to do this, that, and the other? That sure would take a lot of revenue out of the system.
Oh yeah. How many people from here, from Walker County, are in prison for selling a little weed?
I tell you, I haven't been in that jail in 4 or 5 years now. I just about guarantee you that if they were to decriminalize it right now, about half of them would walk out.
Yeah, and they should.
Yeah,
because they didn't hurt nobody. You know what I mean?
I agree.
But
that's what I was telling you. Prohibition taught this country absolutely nothing.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, these meth cooks and these fentanyl pushers, they need to be under the jail.
I agree.
Because they aren't doing anything. They aren't doing anything for the community whatsoever, but destroying it.
No.
Anyway, that's anywhere. That's not just Walker County. That's anywhere.
Yeah. Arkansas is a whole lot worse than we are.
Yeah.
As far as fentanyl and other stuff goes. But
yeah,
just as far as your show or your movie, is it going to be a movie or is it going to be a TV series or what?
I'm pitching it. I'm pitching it as a movie. I'm going to shoot it as a movie if I get funding. But it could work as a TV show. You know, it could be one of those things. I'm watching Justified for the first time. I know it's been off the air like 20 years, but I'm watching Justified right now, and it could work as a southern like a southern show like that. You know,
Yeah.
because Justified was basically set in Harlan County, Kentucky. You know, there's no reason I couldn't set something in. Well, I don't use real names. I don't use
Right.
real places, right? So I created this little town called Muddy Waters because of the Warrior River, that runs through here.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah,
and Smith Lake, obviously.
it's about a mile from me right now, actually.
Yeah. So, and I like to showcase the natural beauty of the area too, right? And that's one of the opening shots is, or I plan one of the opening shots that I've got planned is, you see this nice, pristine river or creek or lake bank or whatever, and then boom, there's a body, right? And it shatters the whole like facade of this is nature's beauty and it's perfect and pristine. And it is that way until it's not that way, you know? And then that sets off the whole thing, right? Is that they find this body floating in the creek and they're like, why is this dead body here? And there we go. you know?
I like it. In this, are you going to take advantage of some of the new drone technology and help film some stuff that way? Or
I think so. I think I'm gonna give in to my urges to shoot with a drone on a lot of this because there's a lot of like tracking shots, and again it would be a useful tool to show the creek, right? So you follow the creek up until you find this body, and it's just this pristine drone shot, the whole way until it's not pristine anymore.
have you seen that show on I think it's on HBO called True Detective.
Oh yeah,
There's like 2 or 3 seasons of it.
yeah,
I really liked the first 2 seasons. I hadn't watched the third one yet, but I loved how it was more dark.
yeah.
And
It's definitely got a dark tone for sure.
yes,
My story definitely has a dark tone.
yeah.
Um,
If it
but there's
feels,
moments of levity.
I'm not necessarily just talking about the dark. I'm talking about there is a lot of dark, but it feels more authentic.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what I'm going for, some authenticity, and then of course I've got some quirky, crazy little moments in there because it's Walker County, basically, you know, and
Oh
you can't
God,
walk around Walker County without running into some quirky, weird characters.
ain't that the truth?
So it's kind of like it's very if you've never seen Twin Peaks, you should go watch it. But it's very Twin Peaks at moments.
It's
And
actually it's actually on my list. I haven't sat down and watched it yet, but it's in my list of things to watch.
it's definitely I wouldn't say an acquired taste because it'll suck you in. But it does drag on after a minute, but lots of David Lynch stuff does. But I love Twin Peaks, and I never watched it as a kid because I was a kid. I
Right.
was watching Bugs Bunny and Scooby Doo, but once I got old enough to understand it, I'm like, this is good stuff. And there's weird little, like I said, there's weird little quirky characters in there, and I don't know if he based them off real people or whatever, but my weird little quirky characters are not necessarily a single person, but maybe a combination of different people in one character, if that makes sense.
Makes sense.
So you take the best part of so and so and the best part of this other so and so, and you put them together, and then you take the worst part of this other so and throw that in there, and there you go. You've got a character that's flawed and perfect at the same time.
And got a little bit of depth.
Yeah. And some of my characters in this, they don't have a lot of depth at first, but you learn, and not necessarily with them telling you, but you see the way they behave and you see the way they act and you see how they interact with other people, and you start to understand who they are through that. One of my main characters, he's a scrappy little dude that may or may not be a meth head. I don't know, but he's a lovable little scrappy little dude that, you know, he makes you love him like a little brother. You know what I mean? And he's a conglomerate of several different people that I know. And I say meth head is a generic term, right? Like,
Right.
you know, somebody that has a problem, but they're good as gold, right? And we all know those people. They have a problem, but their heart is in the right place. If nothing else in their body is in the right place, their heart is.
I used to tell guys whenever I was working in the jail as a jailer, you are not your mistake, meaning you are not whatever action puts you in here. And, you know, sometimes I think, like you was talking about, you're worried about, you know, the judgment of whatever. I think that was where you were going with that. I just learned over the years, you know, you can like or love a person. You just don't have to agree with every action that they do.
Oh yeah. And you know, it's a lot of people that work in the jail don't see it that way.
No, they don't.
I've never been to jail, but I know people that have, and I know people that have worked there, and they don't see them as you're a person that made a mistake.
Yeah.
You're a person, but you're a mistake. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's how a lot of people, and I'm sure it's easy to get jaded working there.
It's
a long time.
It's very easy. It's very
but
easy.
you still gotta look at these people like they're people too, and they've got a mother and they've got a father, and you know, somebody loves them.
Yeah. And I'm not calling any names or anything like that. It's not what I'm wanting to do here. I've still got some friends that work down there. And, you know, some people that I worked with over that whole time span thought that they were above the inmates.
Yeah.
I'm the type that I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like anybody else. And I'm just throwing this out there to make my point, okay? You might be better off than me, meaning you may have more money or you may have more popularity or this, that, and the other, or anybody for that matter. They might be better off than me, but nobody is better than me. And I'm not any better than anybody else. We're all the same.
Yeah.
You know, and I would have conversations and everything with different people that worked there. And we'd get to talking about this, that, and the other. And I would say, did you ever smoke weed? Well, yeah, I did. Did you ever get caught? No. How many times did you go out to a bar or anything? You know, Lord knows we got plenty of them around Jasper, and I'm not knocking it whatsoever. I have partaken.
Not anymore.
You know, but you know what I mean. What we used to.
Yeah. We used to.
O'Malley's used to be a big hot spot to go. I used to go there a lot. You know.
O'Malley's, Tea Times, Greenhorn, Harrison's.
Yeah. You know, how many times they'll be like, well, yeah, I used to go to this place. Okay. How many times did you have possibly a few too many and then decide to drive home? Well, there was a few times. Did you ever get caught? No. I was like, all right then. The difference between you and them is at one point in time, they decided to do something like that and they got caught and you didn't.
Yep.
That's the only difference.
I always go back to and it's comic book, but in Batman the Killing Joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
Joker looks at Commissioner Gordon. He's like, it just takes one bad day.
That's it.
You're one day away from me, you know?
That's it.
That's all it takes.
That was a fantastic story, by the way.
Not trying to
segue too much, but
No,
I've
yeah,
always
it definitely was.
I've always been a big comic fan, and these movies that have come out have been taking pieces from each story, and I'm like, why? You've got the best source material right here. Just do the
Oh yeah.
stories.
Did you seen the new Batman yet?
I have.
Oh, I loved it.
The Batman came across to me a little bit too goth
Eh,
or
you know,
emo or whatever.
he lives in a cave.
That's
I
true.
mean,
That's true. But
and he just happens to have a shit ton of money.
yeah, we're basically the same age. I grew up with Michael Keaton and Adam West, but
Yeah. Oh yeah,
you
Adam
know,
West, man. I remember being outraged as a 6-year-old when Adam West wasn't playing Batman in the movie. I was
right?
like,
But
you know,
I loved Keaton. I really did.
yeah,
But there again, you're a Batman fan, as am I. Superman is king, but I do love some Batman.
I can't stand Superman. I can't. Have you seen The Boys on Amazon?
I hadn't seen it
You
yet.
should you should you should check out The Boys. It's a there's a character called Homelander who is basically the way I've always seen Superman. He's like, I'm better than you and I know it.
Well, see,
He
I don't
makes
see Superman that way.
you know, it one bad day, right? One bad day. And
Right.
they've explored that in Superman comics here and there. Um I gotta tell you, my favorite Superman movie was Superman 2 with Richard Pryor. That
That was pretty good.
was my favorite one.
I
But
I've always viewed Superman as like a godlike figure that was trying to be human, and even Batman was quoted in a couple of stories and everything. He's the most human person among us all.
yeah,
He's always trying to be low key, or at least Clark is anyway. Trying to be
yeah.
low key, just trying to fit in, trying to get along. He's always, his heart and mind's always in the right place. You know,
I like my heroes flawed though. You know what I mean? I like a flawed hero.
he's got a lot of
You know?
flaws though, but he don't have near as many as Batman, in my
No,
opinion. And
or Tony Stark for that matter.
true. I was having this conversation I know whenever we were leaving the theater and everything with my girlfriend's little boy. I watch Batman movies, not or read Batman comics or watch the animated movies. Yes, I'm a 40-year-old man that still watches cartoon movies. But
Aren't we all?
right? But
Some of those DC Batman movies are really good.
yes, they are. But I watch though. I don't watch or read Batman for Batman. I read it for the villains.
Yeah.
And I thought, what was his name? The dude who played Riddler. Was it Paul?
Paul Dano.
Yeah, Paul Dano.
Yeah.
My personal opinion, and you tell me, I thought he was almost Heath Ledger level.
You know, as a fan, I get a lot of hate because I do not like Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. I don't.
Okay.
If you could have taken, and maybe it's the makeup, maybe it's the scars and the makeup that I didn't care for, because I'm a Jack guy, Jack Nicholson,
I love
Cesar
Jax.
Romero. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm that guy.
Yeah. Well, didn't the
but
creators of Joker flat out say that they had Nicholson in mind when they created the character? Because they had just watched the what was the name of that movie? The movie where he came through the door with the axe, The Shining.
Oh, The Shining, yeah.
Yeah, they had just watched that or whatever, and they was like, "Yeah, that's who we want." That's what I've always heard anyway.
But the Heath Ledger character added an element to it, I suppose. And I really liked the new Batman movie. When I first started seeing previews of it or trailers or whatnot, I'm like, I got my doubts about this version of the Riddler. Because the Riddler for the longest time has been like the most flamboyant, out there character.
We grew up with Jim Carrey playing.
Well, Jim Carrey, but also if you look back at Batman 66, Frank Gorshin and
Yes.
John Aston, Gomez
Yes.
Addams played the Riddler for a season.
Yes.
And they were all over the top and wild and out with it. But that wouldn't have fit the tone of the Batman,
No.
So he had to be this almost Heath Ledger-ish character, I guess, with, he's going through some sort of inner turmoil because of, I'm not going to give any spoilers.
Right.
But the reason, and maybe it's because I'm working on a detective film now, but the reason why I enjoyed the Batman so much was because they actually took a step back and was like, okay, Batman's a detective. Let's explore that. Because if you look at any of the others, even the Michael Keaton Batman, he didn't get to like sit down and decipher things, right?
Right.
It was just like action, 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 action. And I hear a lot of people complain because there's not that much action in the Batman. But when there is action, it's like, oh, wow, edge of your seat kind of stuff. But there's
Right.
a lot of like dead moments too, where he's just trying to figure everything out.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, Batman's been known as the world's greatest detective.
But you've never seen him actually be a detective in the movies.
Right. Until this one.
Right.
And the way that he worked so closely with Commissioner Gordon, who I don't think he was commissioner yet, right? He's still a detective. It's like his unofficial partner, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he kind of filled the role of Robin in this movie, I guess. And then just the way they shot it too, like it's kind of like, it's not, I keep telling people it's neo-noir, but it's not really neo-noir because it doesn't really fall in the same visual aspect of, say, Blade Runner.
Right.
So it's more so like a classic film noir, like a Humphrey Bogart kind of movie, except it's Batman instead of, Humphrey Bogart, I guess.
One of the critiques that I had about that movie was, again, he's not my favorite Batman. My favorite Batman would either be Michael Keaton or Ben Affleck. That might catch some heat, but that's what it is.
Hey, I loved Affleck as Batman.
I did too. I really did.
He nailed that Frank Miller look.
Yes, he did.
He did. It was perfect for that version of Batman. Ben Affleck was perfect.
Yes. I love, like you were talking about, I love the interactions with Commissioner Gordon, and I think he was Sergeant or Lieutenant Gordon in this. But,
yeah, I think it was Lieutenant.
I loved the feel of Gotham City, because Gotham City's New York's always been called Gotham City. And they actually showed Times Square and everything like that, whereas Christian Bale versions, it was filmed in Chicago.
Yeah.
So it kind of had a more of a true, as I hold up Dr. Evil quotation marks, Gotham City feel. The one thing that I didn't like was in the moments you could hear him walking. It's a small critique, but the Batman that I remember, you didn't hear him come walking up through the rooms and everything in boots.
Yeah. But it just dropped that tension.
It did. But in the movies beforehand, you just hear music build up, and then he'd just appear out of the top and go, "I'm Batman."
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? They never called him Batman in this movie, though.
Not once.
He was always Vengeance. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I kind of like that. It's kind of like, it's not really Batman Year One, but it's borderlining on Batman Year One.
It had a Year One feel. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I dig the costume. I dig the Batmobile.
I love that Batmobile.
It had the turbine, right?
Yes.
What was the big thing in Batman 66, Ignition, turbines to speed, and then they would take off out of the cave.
Yeah. I thought I can't remember her name, the one who played Catwoman. I thought she
Zoe
did.
Kravitz.
Yeah, I thought she did really well too.
Yeah, and that interaction with them was classic. It was straight out of the comic books. Their interactions,
Yes, it was.
My one critique, and I know they're going to get to it, but my one critique was he got to see her without her mask, but she never got to see him without his. And I'm sure they're going to build to it.
Are there
unless
going
they
to
end
be?
up having a kid and he never takes his mask off.
Are there going to be any future movies based off of this particular version of Batman?
Man, I hope so.
I do too.
It left it so open ended, There at the end when he's talking to his cohort there in Arkham.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a little hint, right? It's nothing huge. You don't see anybody, but you hear.
Yeah.
I love that foreshadowing and that kind of keeping everything in the dark. And I'll tell people I'm weird. Like I want to know the end of movies before I go in to watch it, right? So I don't care about spoilers. For me, it's not about the end. It's how they get there. It's about the journey, not the destination.
I usually ask people, like, if they go and see the movie or whatever, I'll ask people that I trust if it's worth my time and money.
Yeah.
I want spoilers. That way I'll know if I want to go and spend the $75 nowadays to go to a movie theater.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't go to the theater and watch it. I waited till it came out on HBO Max.
I actually went to the theater and watched it.
I enjoyed the theater experience. It's not that I don't. I just didn't want to go out to see that one. I went to see Halloween, the new Halloweens. I saw those in theaters. Actually, no, I didn't see the second one in theaters. I waited till it came on HBO Max, but I did watch it. I saw the first one in theaters. The last movie that we saw in theaters, my wife is a huge Scream fan.
Uh-huh.
So we went to see the new Scream in theaters, and it was awesome. I'm personally not a huge Scream fan. I dig it, kind of, sort of, but for me, Wes Craven was Freddy Krueger. You know, and that was it. Freddy Krueger and like Last House on the Left, and I know he's got this big, wonderful catalog of work that includes Scream. And Scream, it grows on me. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the Rob Zombie Halloween movies. They grew on me after a while. So Scream has kind of grown on me over the years. But I wasn't like a huge fan when it came out.
Nor was I. In later years, I appreciated the concept because it was something different. Because you know how it was. As soon as Halloween came out, Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out, Friday the 13th came out. And after all of those successes, everybody started trying to make the same thing. And then it all ended up holiday based.
Yeah. Well, they talk about the history of slasher films. The first actual slasher movie was 2 years before Halloween. And it was, it may have been 2 years. It may have been a little longer, but Black Christmas. Black Christmas is considered the first slasher movie by people that are just like, real purists about the genre. But what a lot of people don't know is that Black Christmas was directed by the same person that directed A Christmas Story.
Mm-hmm.
So he made a career off Christmas movies, one a very good comedy and one a very good slasher. So
one thing that hurt me as far as going to see horror movies in the theater was whenever The Purge came out. I told you earlier, I liked dark and crazy stuff in my horror movies, but I loved the concept. Like 12 hours or whatever it is, everything you could basically do anything you wanted to except for murder a elected official.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Funny how that works out though, right?
Oh yeah.
That's the only thing you can't do is touch an elected official.
Yeah. And then you'd hear in the news reports where they'd cut into the movie, 200 people showed up at the square at Dallas to purge themselves or whatever. I was like, why ain't they showing that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of just centering around that one family.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not giving any spoilers. That movie's old, and if you hadn't seen it yet, it's your fault. But I was sitting there with a friend, and I was late 20s. No, I guess by that time I was close to being 30. I can't even remember when that movie came out. Anyway, me and a friend of mine were the old people in the crowd, obviously. Yeah. And you know, all of the kids were starting to cheer the dad whenever he was starting to pick them off one at a time. And I was like, this is bull crap.
Yeah. And then cheer the dad.
Then whenever the dad got killed, I stood up and did a Gus Malzahn fist pump and went, yes. Mainly just to aggravate the kids. Now, you should have seen the looks that I got. They're like, this dude's crazy.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you don't go to those movies to cheer on the good guys.
No. I've always cheered Jason and Freddie and Michael, you know, Leatherface.
Unless it's like, you know, Laurie Strode, I'm not, or Ash Williams. Right. I'm cheering on the other side of things, right?
Right.
But Ash Williams, he's a little evil, I bet. You know, he's got a little dirt in him somewhere.
Oh yeah, he does.
You don't cut your own hand off and attach a chainsaw to it if you're not at least a little bit of a bad guy.
It's there. There again.
Yeah.
One wrong day.
One wrong day or one bad day. Yeah.
John, I appreciate you coming on to the show, my friend. I really do.
Man, I appreciate you having me. I'll come back anytime you need me to.
I'll hold you to that. Where can the people find you?
I am on Twitter. I'm on Twitter a lot at John M. Ware. And then Instagram is at John M. Ware 80. And then I'm on TikTok at John M. Ware. I think it's 80 at the end of it too. I'm not sure. Let me look real quick. Hang on. Okay, TikTok is at John M. Ware, and there's a period at the end after the M. And on Instagram it's John M. Ware 80.
Where can they find your films?
3 Days Dead is actually available on YouTube. I got tired of fighting with the distribution people about it, and I said, screw it. I recut the whole thing and put it on YouTube. You're going to want to look for the director's cut, though, because otherwise there's a really bad sci-fi version that's on there. But, yeah, if you want to find 3 Days Dead, go to YouTube and type in 3 Days Dead, THR33 Days Dead, the director's cut. And then the show is actually still on Amazon. You can go to the Amazon. It's like $13.99, Town of the Living Dead.
John, I appreciate you coming on to the porch, my friend. You're welcome anytime you want to come back.
All right, brother. I'll hit you up for sure. Don't. I'm telling you, I might wear out my welcome.
Bring it. Big thanks to John Ware for coming on to the porch. Go find him on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok and tell him you heard him on Porch Matters. I will share the link for 3 Days Dead on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find Town of the Living Dead on Amazon. If you are new to the show and like what you hear, hit that like, subscribe, or follow button and download the episodes in our archives. If this show has been a positive addition to your life, please rate the show and leave a review. Won't take you but a minute, and it really would help the show. Find us on social media by typing Porch Matters Podcast into the search bar. Word of mouth is still the best way of sharing. Pick your favorite episode and share it with at least one person this week. There are a lot of people out there that have never heard of a podcast before. I sure would appreciate it, and I'll see you next time right here on Porch Matters.